Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up on the west coast. I still have no idea how many times I say that on this channel, but we're going to go back to a brewery who you've seen me review many things from before, but this is a style that I have never had from them before, if memory serves me correctly. For this review then, we are going to go back to Stigbergets Bryggeri, and we've got our first bottle in quite a while actually. So this one is the Stigbergets Tripel. It comes in at 8% ABV. I'm sure you can tell by the title what style this beer is, but this was released as part of the Lokal Osmoskaligt assortment in Systembolaget for July of 2020. The exact date was the 1st of July. This time it varies a little bit because of weekends and things, of course. But yeah, as I said, the first Tripel that I've had from Stigbergets, and I think only one of a handful of Belgian style beers that I've had from them before. So yeah, they released this one along with the three-headed cod, which I reviewed a few videos ago. There's also a barley wine, which is in a bottle kind of similar to this, and there's also the Sar Cockerel, which is another barley wine. I believe that one is a collaboration with Zagovor brewery from Moscow in Russia, and I reviewed that beer a good while back actually. That one was released in pubs and things like that maybe about a year ago, something like that, but that is a very nice beer, so if you get the chance to try that one, I highly recommend that you do. But very curious to try my first Tripel from Stigbergets. These guys have been doing some really nice stuff recently. Some of the best beers I've had recently probably are the the King of Hops, the Odoleo. Those are the ones that really kind of stick in mind for me. The Queen of Hops was very nice too. The three-headed cod was great, and the hop selection, the North hop selection that they did was really quite nice as well. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. Something a little bit different from this brewery, and it is very cool to see them experimenting a little bit with different styles. So I do hope we see a quadrupel from them at some point. I'm not sure what they've got lined up for next month, but it is quite cool if they are starting to do like a kind of classic beer series, if you like. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, 8% Tripel, this one from Stigbergets in Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden. Should be interesting. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stigbergets Bryggeri before. No doubt you will see some more added to that list in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri once again then. So Stigbergets, as I've told you many a time before, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, on the west coast, and they were founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So the pair own two bars that share the one kitchen. This is the Bar Kino and the Hagabions Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and they both opened back in 2007, and the building itself is an independent cinema. I didn't know that until I actually went and visited it, and you can check out my out and about video that I did at Bar Kino Hagabions Cafe. It was really nice actually, and not what I expected at all, I have to say, and they've got some interesting films on there, so maybe you do want to go and have some beers in Bar Kino before you go into the cinema. It's kind of the unofficial tap room of Stigbergets and OO Brewing in Gothenburg apparently. But originally the idea that these guys had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the two bars, and this led to them kegging the beers and then selling them on to other pubs before eventually bottling them beginning in November of 2014. The original beers that they were producing were mainly English and German styles, but more recently they've been expanding into the more American hoppy styles of beer, and this was where they really made their name. So the original head brewer was Ole Andersson, who is the co-owner of OO Brewing, and he is now investing his time fully there. But he was replaced maybe 2017 or so by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds. He only stayed with them for a very short period of time, if you like, to kind of steady the ship after Ole left. But this brewery have continued to expand after that. Not long after that, they moved into a new brewery at Partihalarna, where they brew 5,000 litre batches at a time, and they've also been working on some sour beers as well. I still need to try a few more of the Stigbergets sour beers. But they also began selling their beers in the 440ml cans, which they say will allow them to export a lot more of their beers, and they now have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown Brewery in London, and Lucas Monroyd, who used to work for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries around Gothenburg. But they open up the brewery every so often to host a bar. I don't know when the last time they did that was, but in April of 2020 they opened up their bar in Stockholm as well. So there is a Stigbergets bar over in Stockholm, so I'll need to check that out the next time I make it up there. But as of July 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, Stigbergets have produced over 60 different beers according to Untappd, but I do suspect that that number is very, very low, because I think if you're talking 2014, these guys, if they were brewing beers since around 2012, 2013, then probably that number is not accurate, because I think Untappd only really got going around that time, so probably it didn't hit Sweden until a little bit later. I think it started off in the States rather than anything else. But yeah, I probably suspect it's nearer 80 or 100 beers that these guys have produced now. But they are very prolific. There's 2 or 3 beers being released every month through the Lokal Småskoligt in Stigbergets and various other ones that are going out to other places, of course. So yeah, definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you want to check out. If you're interested in some of the classic beers from these guys, the GBG Beer Week, the new and improved GBG Beer Week, is a good one. That was of course developed by Ole Anderson that we mentioned earlier. The Amazing Haze is a kind of Swedish classic beer as well, along with probably the Muddle is the other one. And I think they're going to re-release the Muddle next month in August of 2020, because that is a pretty nice beer actually. So yeah, definitely a Swedish brewery that you want to check out, and as I say, Amazing Haze is probably a good place to start with these guys, or the new and improved GBG Beer Week. If you want to follow Ole Anderson, who is a very well respected brewer in Sweden, check out some of the OO beers, and probably the Narangi is a very good place to start there as well. That came out around the same time as the GBG Beer Week 2016 beer originally. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, rather different from the other artworks that you'll find from Stigbergets. This one is back in one of the classic bottles that I was reviewing Stigbergets beers in back in like 2016, 2017. And of course these guys are one of the kind of cult classic Swedish breweries these days. There you can see the Stigbergets bottle cap. This one is the kind of common bottle cap that they use, and I'm kind of curious as to why they released these in bottles rather than I wonder why they released these in bottles rather than actually putting them in the 330 cans that they've been doing. So yeah, because the barley wine one that you'll see me review in a few videos time, that one is also in a bottle, but it says on the side here unfiltered, unpasteurised. And yeah, this one contains a little bit of brew sugar, which is common for the Belgian Tripels. But 8% ABV, I think we can say this one is on the lower side of the Tripel scale. Quite a few of them can be about 9%. Usually a Tripel is between 8 and 9. I've seen some of them are 9 point something, but yeah, quadrupels tend to start from like 9.5 up to 10.5 or 11%. But yeah, should hopefully be a nice beer, this one. I'm very curious about this, I have to say. So yeah, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting. I did have a Scotch ale, and I forget whether that was released under the Stigbergets name or the OO brew name. I think it was actually the Stigbergets name. So these guys have been known to do the kind of traditional style beers before, but this one, as I say, it's quite cool to see them doing a few sort of classic beers. So I do hope they try a quadrupel in a couple of months' time or whatever. I think you've got to put the paperwork in to release a beer 3 months in advance when it comes to Stigbergets. But yeah, it'd be cool to see them do a few more Belgian style beers at some point. But yeah, the Primal Saison that they did with Transient Artisan is probably the most recent Belgian type beer that I can think of, because that was a really classic type Saison actually. But yeah, when you open this beer up, you get some of that typical lovely doughy yeasty thing that you expect of this style of beer. You can see that when we poured the beer, there was about a quarter finger of a frothy white head there. That's faded away to just be a very kind of thin frothy ring around the edge of the the glass. There's a little kind of fluffy island in the middle of the glass, but it's faded away just to be a very, very thin foamy layer, generally speaking. But as you can see, the beer itself has poured a lovely kind of bright yellow, kind of pale golden straw type colour. You know, you can get Tripels that are a bit more kind of rich than this one in terms of colour. They will tend to be a little bit more kind of, you know, piss yellow, I guess you could say. But you know, some of them can be a little bit darker than this, but this one is definitely one of the brighter ones that I've come across recently. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see just a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But you know, doesn't look overly surprising when you consider what style of beer it is. But yeah, it looks nice, and as I say, you get some of those lovely yeasty qualities coming out of the beer as you open up the bottle. Belgian beer, of course, is all about the yeast rather than anything else. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we go on. As you can see, not the haziest of Tripels that you're going to come across. Some of them, of course, can be clear. There doesn't seem to be a rule about that in Belgium, if you like. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one. It does smell pretty nice, actually. Yeah, so the thing you're going to notice about this beer, it's got everything you expect of the Tripel. It just smells a little bit clean. And again, I've talked about this with the German beers and other Belgian type beers that have been brewed in Sweden, Norway, and to a degree Denmark as well. Whenever you get beers that are brewed in the northern countries, they always come across very clean, usually just because of the quality of water that they have. But yeah, it has everything you'd expect of the style. The yeast smells very, very authentic as well, actually, which is great. I do wonder, they probably have used kind of good. I wonder if they have grown their own yeast from one of the classics like Westmalle or something like that. But the aroma that comes out of this, I have to say, is very, very nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so in terms of the the malty yeasty side of beer first, then we'll tackle that. So straight away with this one, you get that lovely big doughy yeasty kind of thing that you always expect from the Belgian beers. There's a bit of a it's kind of like a sort of sweet white bread, but then with a little bit of an almost kind of biscuity quality mixed into it. So yeah, you get that lovely big thick doughy white bready yeasty kind of thing in there, bit of a bread crusty note, almost a little bit buttery in some ways as well. But you've also got a little bit of that kind of banana there's a wee kind of tiny small touch of banana, some sort of clovey notes to it as well, but not too prominent. They sort of they're kind of mixed in with the sort of brown sugary element that this beer has. It has a little bit of that sort of Werther's Original kind of sweet. There is a bit of sweet caramel in there, but it has got a bit of that Werther's Original kind of note to it as well, which is quite nice. So yeah, the base of this beer, as I say, a sort of white bready note, a thicker doughy yeasty kind of quality, some sweet caramel in there, a little bit of a kind of biscuity, sort of McVitie's digestive biscuity kind of quality to it, but you've also got some sort of clovey spice just kind of sitting underneath that, and a bit of the almost kind of wheaty, banana-y type qualities in there as well. So it's kind of interesting how that all mixes together. But yeah, the doughy yeastiness is forming the base of the beer, and then everything else is kind of sitting on top of it, like I said. But yeah, the brown sugary notes out of this evolve a little bit too. You can definitely smell the brown sugary notes that come out of this one, the sort of candy sugar. Usually they use candy sugar. Yeah, usually they use a bit of candy sugar in these beers. A lot. The same with the quadruples. That's how they get so high in alcohol, but they still they don't feel massively thick in terms of the mouthfeel. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of the malty yeasty side of thing in this is very authentic, and really quite nice in my mind. There's no one particular part of it that tries to push its way out, if you like. I think it is fairly balanced in all the different things that it does. So yeah, I like how that I do like how that goes together. In terms of the hoppy side of things then, so for me, This one you do get a little touch of earthiness out of it, very light earthiness. You do get a little bit of floral character in there as well, but I would say it leans towards the kind of grassy side of things. Some breweries in Belgium, of course, don't use hops in these. I think the Belgian hops, generally speaking, tend to be a sort of a middle ground between the German hops, which are quite bright and floral and grassy, and the English hops, which are a bit more earthy and herbal. The Belgian ones kind of find their profile, if you like, a little bit in between that. Some Belgian breweries, as I say, don't even use hops. Some of them use Groot, these kind of herb things, to sort of balance out the sweetness of the beer. But yeah, the Belgian hops tend to be a little bit less kind of pungent and things. I'm not sure, does this one actually have hops in it? It should say on the side, yeah, this one does have hops in it. So I was thinking that it would be, this one, there was a bit too much grassiness and things to not have hops in it. But yeah, I have had Tripels that have not had any hops in it, and it's been kind of interesting, but it just felt like something was missing. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, there's quite a few interesting things here too. So you've got a nice little bit of an almost apricot-y quality to this one. I think that's coming more from the yeast. You've got a little bit of that banana, you know, that I was talking about earlier. So the banana kind of apricot-y qualities that this beer has, I think, come from the yeast that's been used in here. But from the hoppy side of things, you get a little bit of a kind of peary note out of the beer. There is maybe like a teeny bit of, maybe a tiny little bit like a gooseberry or something. But yeah, peary, and then there's a wee bit of a, that kind of lemony, grassy type citrusy note coming out of this beer. But yeah, I think it's fair to say, yeah, apricots, maybe a wee tiny bit of papaya and mango or something like that. There is a wee tropical element to this. One, knowing Stigbergets, I wouldn't be surprised if they have put like a teeny bit of American hop in this one. But that said, the beer does smell very, very authentic, if you like, so I could be wrong on that. But yeah, as I say, a bit of banana, bit of an apricot, you know, wee bit of a... yeah, a wee bit of a kind of peary, appley sort of ester out of this one. So I like how that goes together. I mean, it's the aroma of this one is very, very authentic and really quite nice. So yeah, thumbs up to Stigbergets in terms of authenticity so far. And that's how we should rate these beers. We should rate them on authenticity, not on whether they're kind of, you know, anything unique, to be honest with you. I think it should be authenticity that you rate these classic beer styles on. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how it goes on. This one is called the Tripel, coming in at 8% ABV from Stigbergets Bryggeri, released in July of 2020. Let's get stuck into this. Sláinte, skål. Oh yeah. That's quite nice. That is pretty damn nice. In terms of authenticity, I'm just going to say straight away, it is pretty damn solid. It strikes me as a little bit sort of medicinal, phenolic in some ways. There is a wee bit of that medicinally phenol type thing coming out of this one, but it is very, very nice. I do like that. So yeah, thumbs up to Stigbergets on this one. They've got this pretty damn solid, I have to say. And to be honest, knowing this brewery, if they're going to do a classic beer interpretation like this, they are going to make sure they've got it right. And the two brewers they've got, Ollie and Lucas, you know, they've got good pedigrees behind them. They are very, very capable. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. It's one of these ones, again, it does have this thing that is typical of the Nordic beers. They feel very clean and things like that, and it's got all the flavour there, but you will notice that this one, it feels very clean. I think the Belgian brewed ones might just feel a little bit slightly thicker than this, but you know, you're going to get things like that wherever you go in the world. The mouthfeel is always going to be a bit different. In Slovenia, for example, they love their beers to be, the IPAs to be big and oily and fruity. You notice little niches like this, but yeah, this is great. Where to start with this one then? I think, you know, Belgian beer is all about the kind of yeasty malty side of it. Let's have a look at that. So yeah, straight away then, in the middle of the palate, you can feel that nice kind of bready base to the beer. It's most complex in the kind of middle third of your tongue, but if you go towards the back third of your tongue, you can feel there's a bit of almost a kind of more the doughy, wheaty notes. They kind of they kind of jump up a little bit. Does this one have wheat malt in it? It tastes like it does. Well, it doesn't apparently. It's just barley malt that's in this. Surprised at that, I have to say, because this one to me, it does have a little bit of an almost wheaty bitiness at the back of the palate, but you can feel on the back third of your tongue there is quite a thick doughy yeasty base to it. On top of that, it feels like it has a little bit of a slightly wheaty like biteness to it. As I say, it's not wheat because it's not listed on there, but then you also get a good little bit of sweetness there. There is a few kind of grainy notes. There are a few kind of grainy notes coming out of this one as well. So I do like the thickness that this beer has towards the back of the palate. As you move further forward into the middle of the tongue, you've got a nice bit of the sort of doughy yeastiness kind of thins down a little bit, and it just forms the base. In the middle of the palate though, you've got a kind of almost like an oily sort of island, if you like, and it's almost like in the very centre of your tongue it's a kind of sweet caramel. In the middle of your tongue it's a sort of sweet caramel, like I say, but then as you move gradually further and further out from that, it gets a little bit more like a Werther's Original, and then by the very edge of that, it's like a sort of McVitie's digestive type flavour. So the slightly kind of sugary notes that come out of this evolve a little bit. As I say, one of the things that they commonly do with the Tripel style is put a bit of candy sugar in it, and that's how they take the alcohol content of these beers up in the fermentation, and that's how the mouthfeel still tends to stay fairly light. It's not as thick and oily as some other styles. But this one, I would say, when I think about it, the more that I drink of it, the sort of the cleanliness of the Nordic water does make it feel a little bit more oily, and that's maybe why I've taken to it. I do like an oily beer. In fairness, beer is always subjective. Different people like different things, of course, but I do like a big sort of oily beer. And this one, the mouthfeel of this, I think, is very, very nice. But it is a bit different from the original Belgians, if you like. But yeah. And the thing that you'll find, I think the sort of clovey spice note that you get out of this beer evolves a little bit. It pushes out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. You don't get the clove initially, I think. I think the sort of banana notes, if you go to the centre of your palate, then just move forward a bit, you'll notice the banana starts to push its way out a little bit more. And if you go out to the side of the banana, that's where the kind of clovey notes, I think, sort of push their way out of the beer, and that is all from the Belgian yeast that's in here, of course. So yeah, it's interesting that doesn't come out initially. I do find that those notes get a little bit more prominent in the aftertaste. So yeah, it's got all the flavours that you expect. It's got all the kind of flavours that you expect this beer, but some of them come out in slightly different ways, I think, and that's one of the things I love about reviewing all these different beers. You can see how the flavours come out in different ways, but very, very authentic, just the flavours coming out in a slightly different order in different places and things like that. But you get that from brewery to brewery, even in Belgium and things as well. But yeah, I really like how this goes together. Solid Tripel for me. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you do have a little bit of that light earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it does evolve and become a little bit more kind of herbal, and then as you reach the front corners of the palate, you've got a very small amount of a kind of floral aromaticity to the beer. Something does make me suspect that there's either a German Tettnanger hop in this, or there is some hop that's been imported from Belgium. I don't know if the Belgian hops, I think they tend to grow different varieties from America, Germany and England. I don't know if they actually have their own specific varieties, but I would be very surprised if they didn't, considering how prominent the brewing industry there is. But anyway, around the front curve of the palate, it is a little bit lighter and grassy, but as I say, it's the earthiness and the sort of slightly herbal notes, I think, are the most prominent parts of the hoppy side of the beer for me. So yeah. But yeah, I do like how that all kind of fits together. The sort of more slightly doughy, spicy notes at the back of the palate there, at the back corners of the palate, they do come out a wee bit more, I think. The earthy, herbally side of thing builds a good bridge with the kind of doughy, spicy thing that the beer has. So yeah, I like how that goes together. In terms of the fruity side of the beer, go to the front third of the palate now. So This one I think is, again, it's quite typical. If you go towards the back of the front third of your tongue, it really is quite sort of apricot-y. You can feel on the bridge between the kind of middle third of your tongue and the front third of your tongue, there is a bit of a kind of almost bready-ish, cakey type quality in there. And that's, you get a good bit of banana there, you get a bit of the apricot-y kind of note coming out of it as well, and it's also got a wee bit of a kind of slightly phenolic element to it, like a sort of cough syrupy medicinal kind of thing there. But as you move further forward from that, bit of the apricot-y note, there is maybe a wee bit of a, I'm hesitant to say there's a wee bit of like mango-y notes in there. I mean, I do wonder, there are a few wee elements in here that are making me wonder if there's a tiny little bit of citra in this. There is, there is a wee slight mango-y, apricot-y sort of thing coming out of this, so there could be a tiny little bit of citra used in this. Citra would actually work quite well in a Tripel, I think. If you did use an Idaho 7, I think would be another one, and maybe even Simcoe could be an interesting one. If you used a very small amount of it and kept the bitterness down, it could work very well for the fruity side of the beer. But yeah, there is just something in this that makes me wonder if there is one of these higher alpha acid American or Australian hops that have been added late in the boil. There is just something about it. But yeah, tiny little bit, as I say, you move further forward from that, tiny little bit of a kind of slightly mango-y, apricot-y type thing. But then as you move towards the front of the tongue, it's sort of peary, there's a little touch of an apple-y note to it, and then as you reach the very kind of front edge of the tongue, it's that kind of grassy, citricy, slightly lemony flavour that's coming out of it. It's got a little bit of zestiness to it around the front edge of the tongue, I have to say. But yeah, I think the fruitiness really leans towards that sort of it's a very slightly kind of phenolic, dried, kind of sort of dried apricot-y type kind of thing, like sultanas almost. Sultanas is probably a good descriptor for the description for the fruity notes in this beer as well, actually. But yeah, I think that's really nice. This beer's it grows on me more and more as I drink it. But yeah, in terms of authenticity, I think they've got this one pretty damn spot on. As I say, the flavours come out slightly differently, and you're always going to get that from brewery to brewery, so we can't really fault it for that. It feels a little bit cleaner than some of the Belgian ones that I've come across. I'd put that down to the Nordic water personally, but in terms of a Tripel, I think this is maybe one of the best ones that I've found in Sweden so far. And just a few videos ago I also reviewed one from one of the very small breweries in Dalarna, Salinsbryggers. Their Tripel was also very, very nice, so I would recommend you check out that one. There's a good few Belgian beers up here in Sweden that are very authentic actually, so it just shows you that I think more and more breweries are starting to pay attention to these styles, having focused on the IPAs for so long, and I welcome that. I'm glad to see that more breweries are trying some of the traditional German stuff and some of the traditional Belgian stuff rather than just focusing on the big hazy IPA hot bombs and things like that. It's a shame that more breweries don't try and brew these things, so it's good to see Stigbergets having a go at it. Actually, I'd love to see the likes of Dugis and Brewski and things like that, these other breweries having a go at some of these beers. It'd be cool to see what Omnipollo could do with some of these classic styles if they brewed like a pure beer. Omnipollo of course are famous for all these adjuncts and things like that, but when they do try a pure beer, it tends to be really bloody good actually. So I'd love to see Omnipollo brew a Tripel or a Quadrupel or something like this. I don't think that's something that they've ever really done. So yeah, it just goes to show you, when you get the kind of prominent breweries having a go at these things, maybe some of the others will start to follow. But I'm glad to see the Belgian and the German styles are getting a bit more attention now, because it's all about the kind of hazy IPAs these days, or the Goses and the Berliner Weisses, which are German styles, but it's the IPAs and the sours that are getting all the attention. But the things like this, I think, can be a nice treat as well. It's nice to have something a little bit different in my mind. Anyway, on to the mouthfeel of this beer then. I would say somewhere, I think it's at the top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied, this one. Carbonation's very smooth. It's somewhere between oily and wet. It's got a good combination of the two, this one, in my mind. It's got you need a bit of oiliness from the Tripel to let the kind of fruity flavours and stuff kind of come out a little bit, and also for the kind of sugary notes as well. So this one's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's got a bit of wetness to it, but it's also got a nice bit of a sugary quality. Some nice kind of, you know, definitely a nice bit of a kind of hoppy quality to the beer as well, kind of maybe about 20-ish IBUs, something like that. You don't expect too much hoppiness from the beer, but I think the hoppiness, there is a wee bit of the floral notes kind of linger for me a wee bit. That again makes me wonder about the American hops I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, a little bit of hoppiness to the beer, maybe about 20 IBUs, and a nice sort of oily, juicy fruitiness coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, this gets a big thumbs up from me. It's got everything you would expect from the style. The fruitiness, it's a little bit, I think if we compare it to others, it's got a little bit more kind of phenolic quality than some of the other ones I've had. But I think this is a very, very nice interpretation of the Tripel style. So thumbs up to Stigbergets for this, and I do look forward to seeing what else they release in this kind of classic series that they're doing. And you will see me review the barley wine very soon as well. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Stigbergets Tripel, coming in at 8% ABV, and it turned out to be pretty damn awesome. I can feel the booze going to my head a little bit on this, so we should end the review there. But thank you again for watching. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets as well. We will be reviewing more from these guys, you know, over the next months and years and stuff like this. You will see some more reviews from these guys, of course, because they're always releasing stuff. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media and have a go at this one if you enjoy things like Westmalle and Tripel Karmeliet and all of this sort of thing. But yeah, until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out the Tripel from Stigbergets Bryggeri. Skål.